All right, welcome back, everybody, to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. Per Danielsson, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Hope everybody's doing fine out there.
Yes, sir. We're so happy to have you back with us on your topic today of jazz piano improvisation. We're recording these sessions as we do for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach. We've got the folks in the session today muted for the courtesy of the session. I will be happy to get any questions to Per using the chat feature or the raise your hand feature. And if you have feedback on this session or other topics that you would like to see us do, please email them to us at info@clearwaterjazz.com. Check out all of the upcoming sessions on our education and outreach page. And you can also access our studio resource of past recorded sessions. They're all up there, all these wonderful educators and professional musicians building this wonderful treasure for students of all ages. We also have the Young Lions podcast, which is accessible wherever you stream your podcasts. Those are the audio portion of all of these sessions and some other fun things. So I'm going to turn it over to Per in just a minute, but I've got to make him blush now a little bit and tell you a little bit about him and some of his accomplishments. He's no stranger to Clearwater Jazz education and outreach, and as a regular participant in our traditional Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions program. He's a jazz pianist, composer, arranger, writer, and educator. He's also an associate professor of jazz piano and composition at the University of Central Florida. He is a native of Stockholm, Sweden, grew up with a jazz guitar playing father. He was exposed to the sounds of Oscar Peterson and Bill Evans at an early age. After formal piano studies in Sweden, his love of jazz brought him across the ocean to attend the internationally acclaimed North Texas State University. He is an active performer, appearing often as a guest artist, soloist, clinician, and sideman. His career has included performances with many leading artists and entertainers. His most current CD release is his trio recording, Time Will Tell, featuring Richard Drexler and Marty Morell. He can be heard on Chuck Owen and the Jazz Surge's latest CD, Whispers on the Wind, which received 4 Grammy nominations. Per has been a member of this group since 2001. He completed his master's degree in jazz studies, composition, and arranging, studying with one of the finest jazz writer-arrangers of today, Chuck Owen, at the University of South Florida in Tampa. He now holds the position of Associate Professor of Jazz Piano, as I mentioned, at UCF in Orlando. He also shares his knowledge in current publications by Mel Bay, including Essential Jazz Lines in the Style of Bill Evans, Essential Jazz Lines in the Style of Miles Davis, First Lesson Piano, You Can Teach Yourself Jazz Chords, Real Book, DVD, and others. In addition, Per is active in the jazz education outreach. He is currently artistic director of the American Jazz Pianist Competition. He has also served on the presidential advisory board of the Jazz Education Network. Per Danielsson, welcome back to Clearwater Jazz Holiday's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. That's a mouthful. The stage is all yours, my friend.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that nice introduction. And yeah, good to be with you guys again. This is a great initiative, and this gives me a chance to sit here and talk about one of my favorite things to do, and that's to play the piano. And piano was actually the first instrument I started on, and I stuck with it. I played trumpet for several years, but the piano was the instrument that really inspired me and intrigued me, and so I stuck with it. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I like it so much is that, the piano is I can play all these colors and all these notes and chords and harmonies, and that those harmonies was just like, you know, I just love the harmonic sound, and especially the harmonic sound of jazz. So in a way, the piano is so different. You know, we can make those sounds. We have so many possibilities in our improvisation that you know, horn play doesn't have. They get played one note at a time. Because the closest to piano will be guitar, because they can also you know, harmonize and play, of course, multiphonic, many notes at the same time. But the piano is unique in the aspect that you have you know, the full musical range from this lowest note down here to up here. So therefore, I don't really look at it as a piano. I look at it as an orchestra, because everything is in here. I have, if I can demonstrate a couple of things, I have, you know, the tenor instruments, maybe cello, going into the basses, and the whole string section. So this will be a kind of a string pads. And then I have the flute and clarinets. Maybe all the trombones coming in here. We have the trombones playing down here, and the trumpets. The whole brass section. And we end with the soft violins here. And flutes. So that's the way I look at the piano, and because we have basically all our instruments in here, it gives us a wide variety of how we can play the piano. And I look at it, you know, improvisation is you make music up on the spot based on rules, based on material that we have practiced. So a lot of things that we play is not necessarily a big surprise because we have practiced the concept, but how we put all these concepts together, that's what improvisation is. And for the piano, the wonderful thing is that I can look at it as the orchestra. All right, you know, I'm gonna have the flutes coming in, I have the clarinets coming in, and then I'm gonna do that. And so now, I don't really think like that when I play. I mean, I don't say, okay, clarinets are coming in and the cellos are coming here. But the concept of the piano, that's what I like to make sure that you understand that. So anyway, I'm going to show you in like an organized fashion what we can do on the piano that most instruments can't. And it's such a versatile instrument. So I'm going to switch to view here, so you can see. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, there you go. All right. There's different things we can do. What about if we have a single instrument, a soloist will be in the right hand, and we have a bassist, and that's all we're going to do. And yeah, I'm just going to try to play that, and I'm just going to do it over, we're going to do over the chord changes of Green Dolphin Street. That's a tune that I played 1,000,000 times, and I still love playing it. So anyway. what I utilize there, I have my solo instrument in the right hand, and I had a bass. Okay, so tell me what other instrument can do that? Well, guitar maybe, if it's a really good guitar player, but it's got to be hard to solo up here and play the bass line down here. It's going to be kind of tricky. One guitarist, a little side note, that if you want to listen to somebody that incorporate, I think kind of close to the piano concepts with chords and orchestration is Joe Pass. It's one of my favorite guitar players, which, by the way, I had the opportunity to see many times when he came to Stockholm, where I grew up. Okay, so there you have one example, one concept. All right, so now why don't we stick with a solo instrument here, but we're gonna play chords in the left hand. We're gonna get a whole other sound, and I'm gonna use what I call these shell voicings. That's based on material that I actually talked about in a previous session. So if you want to look that up there, you can. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play chords in my left hand. So we can say that this is the trombones that's going to accompany a sax player. Okay, there we have the trombone section. And the sax player or whatever solo instrument is playing up here. Now that style of playing is, I don't want to say the most common, but in a way it is, because you hear a lot of players, they would play those left-hand chords and solo with the right hand, and the left-hand chords kind of supports the soloist. So that's another concept we can do. We can be our own accompanist and our own soloist at the same time, which again, guitar comes close to that, but piano, we have the whole package as far as that. And pretty much every jazz piano player, doesn't matter who you listen to, Keith Jarrett or Oscar Peterson, Bill Evans or Wynton Kelly, they all at some point got to play those comping chords like that with a solo line in the right hand. So there you go. That's another concept. So keep these in mind if you want to write them down as you listen. That's great, because so we've gone through a couple of concepts. Actually, I'm going to go back to the first concept with the bass and the right hand. And a person that's just a master of that is swinging so hard is Oscar Peterson. So C Jam Blues, I think it's 1964 in Denmark or Stockholm. It's a YouTube video of that, C Jam Blues with Ed Thippen and Ray Brown. I highly recommend to listen to that. He does a couple of courses on top, and it's just absolutely marvelous playing. So, okay, let's expand on this last concept here, where we have our accompaniment here and our solo line here. How about let's have two soloists? So we're gonna kind of start to do things in intervals in the right hand or some counterpoint. what I did there, I played intervals in my right hand, and that was basically, you know, pretty much only thirds I was practicing. And then again, we go back to our regular practicing. You know, the piano practicing that we should do. So I expanded on this concept now. I played more notes in the, well, 2 notes in the right hand while I was comping in my left hand. So now we're up to 3 different concepts here that's totally unique for the piano. Now, what I dealt with here is melodic improvisation over either bass note or chord. Now, as you know, in Western music, we have melody, harmony, and rhythm. And the big concept that we add in jazz is obviously the improvisational part. But I just improvise on melodic here, melodic improvisation. That was what I was working on. So now, what about take a look at the harmonic improvisation? And that can get really interesting. So that was the same tune. I just changed the key on it for variety. What I did there, I improvised over the chord changes. Now, I know that this is pretty complex, and I don't expect, of course, anybody to be able to do that right away without practicing. I spend a fair amount of practicing trying to learn this, and I'm still working on it. But what I have moved on to now is improvisation over harmonic context. So we dealt with melody, now we're looking at harmony. And the way I look at that is that not necessarily as chords, but I look at it as sounds. I'm playing different kind of sounds. So if I play, here you have a C major chord, C major 7. Maybe we play it like this. Maybe put a 9 on it. So all these different variations now, we actually call it voicings, how I voice the chord. But you can also look at it as sounds. Let's do another sound. We're going to add a sharp 11. So here I improvised over that one chord, and basically the sound over this chord would be a scale that goes like this. We call that a Lydian scale. Now scales is something that we're going to get into a little later, but because that scales also create sounds, but this chord here, if I fill in everything And that was the sound that I was improvising on. It's almost like you can play all these notes at the same time. And I think that was probably one of the main parts of jazz that intrigued me first, figuring out those sounds, because I just love that. So if I do that in freely over Green Street, get something like this. So that was a free improvisation. I didn't have a set time in it over Green Street. And tell me or email me if you can find out another instrument that can do that. Totally unique for the piano. So all these different concepts is good to have in mind, because why shouldn't we use them? And sometimes you hear piano players that kind of stick with one style, but that's also okay, because there are master performance in their own right in different styles, and so they kind of stick with that style, and that's of course wonderful when they're so unbelievably good at it. But I look at kind of developing and being able to do all these different concepts. Now, to teach somebody in 10 minutes or 20 minutes how to do this, of course, is years of practice. But there's a couple of things that you can just show you to get started. If I'm going to play what's called a C6-9 chord. I have a C here, 3-6-9. That's a beautiful sound right there, because it's based on these fourths. Okay. So I can play that bass note there and the chord. Now there's something called Diatonic Triads, and so one of the first things we learn in regular Western music theory, and that is the triad chords over scale. So let's make it easy and look at the C major scale. First chord is C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, and C. Those are the diatonic triads over C major scale. So let's see what that's going to sound like with this. Now I got to do it over the C minor. That's a kind of fun way to start to explore this. And it's easy to understand. So it's just the diatonic triads. You can also do them in inversions, of course. where you change the order of the notes. So we can move that G, we move it down an octave. So that's a kind of interesting way to open this up, and that's how you can start to experiment with this. So that's diatonic triads. Another concept is that you can start to move the chords up and down half steps. I did it kind of quickly there. C minor. Or maybe down a half step. D7, move up a half step. D flat 7, move up a half step to the C. D minor, maybe moving up a whole step. G7, up a half step. Back to C. F minor, up a half step. B flat 7, down a half step. E flat major, up a half step. G sus, up a half step. So by moving these harmonies up and down half steps, you can kind of start to improvise on those harmonies, on those chords. What I did there, I moved it up 2 steps. So from C, C sharp to D, C sharp to D flat and back. So that's a chord movement that we can start experiment with. It's really interesting. And actually, when you are comping for a soloist, a lot of times we use those kind of things. A lot of half-step approaches there. There are other rules when it comes to changing harmonies. We call them substitutions. And what a substitution is, that instead of playing, maybe going straight from D minor 9 to G7, maybe we play D minor 9, A flat 7 to G. We call it tritone substitutions. But now we're getting kind of technical, so I don't expect anybody to kind of get that right away, but I want you to get the concept that we have to our disposal when we play piano all these different variations. So if I'm gonna play through here, say I'm gonna start with single line. A voice that I did thirds, full chord, up a half step, and then I play the left hand chord with a line, full chords, up a half step, a substitution to the the G7. And here comes the whole big band. That was the trumpets playing in octaves here, and the trombones down here. And that was a lower brass section here. Okay, now I just told you a lot of concepts. So kind of repeated. We have this single line with bass, trombone section with a soloist, a trombone section with maybe two horns playing parallel. Okay. And then we move on to the harmony, just improvising over the sounds of the chords. And a chord with the Diatonic Triads. In inversion. And then the half step and whole step approaches. So those are the concepts that you can think about. You don't want to play and constantly switching between these, because that gets too erratic. It gets too unorganized. But you certainly want to incorporate all these concepts in your playing. That to me brings an excitement. And when you start to think about it as a composer. And of course, it's very common that piano players are composers and arrangers as well, because we learn these concepts with all the harmonic material that's right in front of us. Again, the piano, we do have that advantage that we have a visual perspective of the instrument. When you play a horn player or a trumpet player, you don't see the note. I mean, we see that C, we see the D there, we see the E flat. We can almost look and see what notes is gonna sound good together, and that's an advantage that we have as piano players. Now, a good way to practice this, the way I practice is I pick a concept maybe a day, or sometimes if I don't feel like mastering it, I stay with the same practice concept for maybe 2 days or 3 days, or a week or a month, or whatever it takes to learn it. But it's good that you organize your practicing. So the concepts I told you today, just pick one and kind of start to work on it. And then, of course, listen to your favorite piano players. As you probably know, transcribing is a great way of learning. You listen to your favorite piano player, you transcribe exactly what he plays, note for note, and then you try to imitate that, because it gives you an inside look and education into that one player. It's the same thing as sports. You know, if you play golf or tennis, If you, back in my day, Bjorn Borg was a big tennis player. He had a totally different style than McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, and Federer has a different style than Nadal, for example. Same thing with piano, and you know, any music or any instrument. But also, you should listen to what kind of concepts the piano players are using. If you listen to Oscar Peterson, which is, you know, Oscar is a very busy player, but he is busy because he has such a wonderful technique, so he's able to basically do anything. If you listen to him play, sit down with a piece of paper and you write down, okay, single line with bass note, left hand comping with single line, or full chords, kind of like playing like a big band. And then you listen to it, how does he go from these different concepts? How did he get in from single line into these big chords that sounds like a big band? And that's, to me, is a very musical way of mentally transcribe what the masters have done and how they played. And you're going to find that you're going to find a much better flow in your own playing when you understand that. You know, we tend to play mainly single lines with left-hand chords, but, you know, piano, we have this amazing opportunity. And you know what, I'm kind of doing it myself. Sometimes I say, wow, I played lines now for 3 courses. Oh, maybe I should do something else. So it's a constant thing, being aware of what you're doing. So, and again, this today was just a displaying this, what you can do is not, of course, single line. If we play that well, there's scales we need to learn, there's technique we need to learn, and so on. So that's, you know, a whole nother story. But this is just to kind of open up your mind and kind of unlock the secrets with piano. And I think we can agree this is what makes us unique. I mean, and, you know, every instrument has its uniqueness. You know, for example, I would love to play the saxophone like Cannonball, Phil Woods, or Charlie Parker. I would love to play trumpet like Maynard Ferguson. But yeah, that would be fun, but I don't know if I want to trade my piano for anything. So I hope this is helpful to you, and if you have questions, you feel free to contact me, and I'm looking forward to do the next session here again, and thank you so much to all of you at Clearwater Jazz Holiday, this outreach program, for having me involved. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to see you next time. Do you have anything else that you want to say?
Another fantastic session, Per. Thank you again for going the extra mile with us. You're going to be back with us on Wednesday, August the 26th, for a jazz piano combo and big band session, which we're really looking forward to. And for those that are participating today or will be watching in the near future, tomorrow we have some really good stuff. We've got Alejandro Arenas with the group La Lucha joining us on a topic called Musical Composition Approaches and Ideas at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then that is followed by Tyler Wertman at 4:30 p.m. on a basic trombone fundamentals class, developing a warm-up regimen. And then if you go to the Clearwater Jazz Holidays Education and Outreach page, there's a section called Upcoming Sessions, and you can see all of the ones that are now scheduled well into September, with so many great musicians and educators. And before we leave, I just wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners, who helps us to present the studio resource where all of these sessions find their home after the live sessions, and also to Marine Max Clearwater, where all of the audio portion of the sessions find their home on the podcast, the Young Lions podcast. And then lastly, our great friends at the Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association, believing in Clearwater jazz education and outreach and helping to do more of these sessions, including the session today. So thank you, Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association. With that said, Per, it's been a pleasure having you with us, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, everybody, stay safe out there, be well, and keep playing. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.